Great to see so many people. Thank you guys for coming. We're going to be butchering a hog. My name is Luke Dougherty. I have a couple of brothers here behind me helping me. James is in tan. John Paul is in black. And they'll be helping me out a little bit. Little history on me. Since I was about 12, we started butchering on my parents' homestead. And since then, I've butchered most of what I've eaten. We buy meat here and there, but not actually all that often. We do a lot of pork, a fair amount of beef, some lamb, chicken sometimes, but pork is really the mainstay. It really lends itself to small farm harvest. So one of the things that I'm going to be using here is this trailer, which I'm going to real quick give a plug for. I'm building these trailers. They're mobile slaughter units, building to sell. And part of what I'm doing here is I want to demonstrate how this unit can really turn, it can really allow for all-season harvest of hogs. Traditionally, hog harvest was a cold weather thing because you need to be able to get that meat chilled in order to process it. Not that it can't be processed warm, but it is not optimal. So this is something that you can either do in the winter, or you can build yourself a cold room, or you can buy one of my mobile slaughter units. But what you didn't see, I just went back there behind the barn, shot this pig. I used a 9mm. That's more than you need. I used to work at a slaughter facility, and it was a little small town butcher shop. We just used a 22. That was about 15 years ago. Since then, I have found, and I've talked to other butchers, and they have found the same thing, we've had more and more trouble dropping a pig with a 22. Their skulls are getting thicker. I can't speak for heritage breeds as much. I do a few here and there. But your commercial hogs, seems like they're breeding, one of the byproducts of what they're breeding for is that they have thicker skulls. So I know a pair of guys who butcher together. They use a 410. That works good. It's a little hot for my taste. You end up with some trauma sometimes down here. You're shooting up here. Sometimes you end up with an exit wound here. I don't like that. 9mm, cheap hollow point ammunition. It seems like a pretty decent middle ground. So if you're looking at if you're getting ready to shoot your pig, it's standing over here. First of all, you got to get it to look at you. Real good way to do that is you don't want to feed it the night before. You want it to have an empty gut. Give it something to drink. Give it some beer. Guys do that. Pour cheap beer into a pan. Put that down. The pig will go to drink it. It's hungry. That's a good time to shoot it. Food is okay. Food will work too. Their head moves more when they eat than when they drink. So putting a beer in a pan is a trick I learned from somebody and seems to work pretty good. I didn't need to do that this time, but it's handy. We're dry here anyway, right? I mean, there's no beer around. So anyhow, you want to put that bullet, so their forehead's sitting here like this looking at you. Ear, eye. Draw an imaginary X. Ear to eye. You want to put a bullet right there. If you're going to miss a little bit high. If you have a lop-eared pig, you're going to think those ears are lower than they are, so you definitely want to miss high. If you shoot low, the pig will squeal and shake its head and probably turn around and stand with its head to the back of the pen. It's going to be hard to shoot second time. That's what you got to do. You just got to suck it up and load another round and pop it. It will happen here and there. But if you tell yourself, if I'm going to miss, I got to miss high, that will eliminate 99% of that. That brain is right above that X. So if you put that bullet, you draw that ear to eye, put that bullet right above that, the pig will go right down. It will start kicking right away. That's a sign that it is dead. It will kick and thrash. Don't get in the way. It will hurt you. If you have a chance usually there's about 2.5 seconds before it starts kicking. If you can get a knife in there, this is the knife I used. This is a knife I'm going to use for almost everything I do today. You don't need a bunch of fancy knives. This is Victorinox Very just cheap butchering knife. The main thing is have it sharp. Expensive knife won't cut if it isn't sharp. But to stick, you've shot the pig, goes down for about 2 seconds. You're going to take the knife with the spine of the knife towards the tail of the pig. You're going to go in right in front of the breastbone, and you're going to slice. You're going to flick the blade forward. And that will cut through the arteries right above the heart, and it will bleed out. You can also, if you don't reach that spot, go in right behind the jawbone. Go in with the, again, spine. This is the spine of the blade. Go in and flick the blade, and it will bleed out. In both cases, your goal is to have a small wound, because that pig is then going to kick and spin, and it'll grind dirt into whatever wound you create. So you want to have a small wound on the outside, big slice on the inside, and it'll bleed out. If you want to catch the blood, this is a better place to stick. And then you want 2 strong guys to kind of hold the pig down, and you sit there with a bucket, and you can catch the blood. That's not something I did today. I have done it many, many, many times. You want to catch that blood. You want to stir it. As it's bleeding out, you're sitting there. As you're catching it, you're stirring that blood, and you'll end up with a big clot on your hand. You've got to stir it for 5 minutes. And you pull that out, and after that, that blood is stable. If you don't do that, it will coagulate into a big clump, and you won't want to use it for whatever you were planning on using it for. Okay. I think we're ready. I'm going to do my best to make this visible, but I'm just going to do my thing here. I'm much more of a butcher than I am a presenter, so if you have a question, holler or raise your hand or whatever, and I'm happy to answer it. I'm going to be more comfortable answering your questions and talking to you as I go than I am coming up with some patter to talk while I'm butchering. Yes, sir?
Scalding versus skinning.
Yeah, okay, good question. Scalding versus skinning. I've done both. I grew up scalding. Old gentleman named Barry Bender, 25 years ago, he and my dad started raising hogs together, and he taught us to scald and scrape. He's an old German out of Pennsylvania, a wonderful guy. He died about a year ago. Wonderful man. We were still butchering. We had hogs in the pen to butcher when he died. We butchered them, and we're getting more. We still butcher with that family. But scald and scrape, the advantage is primarily the whole muscle cures that you can do that don't need to be refrigerated. There are whole muscle cures you cannot do if you've skinned. It's a great thing to learn. It requires a little more equipment. It requires a little more time, a little more elbow grease, a little more finesse. You get your temperature wrong. If you didn't have your equipment set up quite right, if the burner you thought was going to heat your water craps out on you, you're going to end up skinning that pig. So I like to teach skinning to people. You can learn. Today and tomorrow, what I will be showing you is the way that my family and I butcher. It is a simple way to get a live hog into your freezer and know what you want to do with those cuts. We're not going to talk fancy names of the cuts. We're not going to talk fancy cures. We're going to talk getting a live animal into the freezer and knowing what to do with those big pieces of meat, because that's pretty intimidating. That's really the real roadblock, I feel like, with people. Like, I have to shoot this animal, and then I have to get the gut out of it before it starts going bad, and then I have to get it into the freezer, and then I have to know what to do with it. Once you know the basics, you can learn all the rest from 101 different YouTube videos, books. If you know the basics, if you're not intimidated by the basics, then the rest of it's icing on the cake. That said, we're going to skin this hog. It's faster. Like I said, it's harder to screw up. You can. The first time you skin a hog, you're going to think you did it wrong, because it just looks all, won't be as pretty as I make it, but it will go right in the freezer. It will eat just the same. If you scald a hog and it doesn't come out quite right, you still have to deal with the hair that didn't come off. So that's why we're going to skin. So first thing, you want to make sure you get the hog clean. Now, I can't see these. Can you see what I'm doing here? No? I'm just going to spray it off. I have an instant hot water heater set up right here. It's kind of a slick little unit. It's got a D-cell batteries for an ignition, so it doesn't require electricity, just requires propane. Hot water is very handy when you're butchering, but not necessary. Cold water will do it, but especially when you split the animal and you want to get the bone chunks off from sawing down the spine, hot water does a better job.
What's the breed of hog that you mainly butcher?
Whichever one is brought to me. I don't have a usual. There's a gentleman who I usually buy my little hogs from when I'm butchering my own, and they're like a mule foot cross. But I butcher for myself. I do some demonstrations at home in Ohio. Me and another fellow, we do some weekend demos for people where they come and get their hands dirty and actually learn how to do it. And I butcher for my parents and with the benders who I was talking about.
Yes, sir. What's your question?
Say you kill a boar hog, but you got like front end hog. Do you have to cook him before you do anything?
Well, so I have butchered a few boar hogs. Thanks. Just get the other side clean too. I have killed and eaten a few boar hogs here and there. I've had bad luck usually. So what'll happen is if you kill and process a boar hog, you won't really know until you put the first piece in the pan whether you're going to want to eat it or not. And about half the time or more, you fry it up. It'll taste fine, but the whole time it's frying, you'll think he peed all over the kitchen. It just smells. It just smells terrible. So if we were raising a boar piglet, yes, we would cut him. Yeah.
I'm saying like if you kill a wild tree.
In the wild?
Would you cut it as soon as you shot it?
I've never tried that. I don't know that it would help. I doubt it would help. But it'd be something worth trying, you know. The question was, if you had, say, been hunting and killed a boar hog, if you castrated it right away after you shot it, would that help with that boar taint smell problem? And the answer is I don't know. It might. So you've shot boar hogs, adult boar hogs, and eaten them. How was it? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, that sounds like I'll try it next time. Next time I'm in that position, I'm going to try it. The last time I ended up killing and eating an intact boar, we had got some piglets from the same guy, and one of them had been cut proud. He didn't know, but there was still a nut in there. And it was not good. It smelled pretty bad when we cooked it. We got through it, but we didn't waste it, but it was not how you want your pork to smell as you're eating it. I don't know if, yeah. All right, we got a clean hog here. You want to lower you can take the single tree off. We're just going to put it up on the cradle. Now we'll use this. Where is the chain that you use? We got it. Go ahead. This little hog we could just about pick up, but I want to show you how this works. So we're going to use the hoist. First thing we're going to do is put it up on a skinning cradle. That's what this is. This is something I threw together last night. I thought I had one here from last year and I didn't. But very simple. Come look at it afterwards. You can build your own. This is pretty crucial for skinning a hog. It makes life a lot easier than working on the ground. Yeah, just pull her forward. Go ahead and go down. good. You want to hook that just back so I don't keep hitting my head on it. So all that's just a length of chain that I have bolted into a loop. I do a little lark's head knot over the over the pig's foot, and get her flat on her back. That'll hold real well. So I just double the chain, slip it over the foot, and that'll pick it up. That bucket of soapy water.
Yep.
How many people out here have butchered a hog before? Well, that's a fair number of you. That's great. Don't say anything when I do something wrong. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is open up the hide from the tail to the chin and the inside of each leg. So I'm basically going to make an incision here and across to here, here and across to here, and from here to here. Keep your eye out for questions.
How come you're not doing it hanging up?
Skinning, because this is easier, in my opinion. I know they will. So if you're doing a deer, for instance, after you've made the first incisions, you can hang it up and pretty much pull that hide off. Deer, sheep, that's true. If you were stout enough, I suppose you'd probably do it on a cow too. The way that the hide sits against the flesh on those three animals is kind of similar. Pig is different. The hide is more closely adhered to the fat, more closely adhered to the muscle. My doctor friend tells me it's a lot like we are, actually. It won't come off that way. Now, I know I've seen videos of slaughterhouses where they manage it. Sure, I don't know how they do it. Knife skinning is anybody I've met, that's how we do it. Pardon. I heard
How long has the pig been dead?
Now? 15 minutes? Yeah. I shot it and drove it right over here, so.
The first pig I did hanging.
Okay, how'd that work?
Well, I just did it with a knife.
Uh-huh. I've never tried it, so.
Because I do the goats and sheep hanging.
Yep.
But I can pull.
Did you pull the pig hide? Or did you
No.
end up, you said you knifed it off?
I knifed it.
Yeah. And
One positive thing about a cradle is it's all right here. It's not here and all the way down to here. It's all right here. You can skin it. You're not having to bend over real far or reach way up and grab stuff.
so if there's a trick to skinning, I would say that what it is you want to put tension on the hide, and then it's almost as if you're scraping that fat right off the hide. The knife edge is going to ride the hide as you pull it back, and you want to cut wherever the tension shows on the, so I'm pulling up, I'm looking at where it's tight, that's where I'm going to slide the knife. What'll happen is you pull back and you see the tension, you start cutting there, and you keep cutting there. Well, that's not the tight spot anymore. And then you're going to be down in a valley trying to work at it. It's much harder to do. You want to kind of chase the tension in the hide. And that will give you a cleaner skin.
Do you tan the skin?
Pardon?
Do you tan the skin?
I do not. Could it be done? I'm sure.
I think you've got at least a half a dozen footballs right here if you want to do it.
Well, I'm doing pigs this fall, and I wanted to tan the skin.
Okay. Just wait. It's fine. I don't have that much time here anyway.
So if I did that, would I
Wheelbarrow.
want to scald it first?
If you were going to tan it, I don't even want to approach it because I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I've never tanned a hide. Yeah. So the feet come off. I started to skin, and actually I want the feet off first. What I'm doing, going in with the point of the knife. You got to cut the tendons behind the knee. And then the point where the leg will come off is just below the middle of the knee. So you cut through the side a little bit, and the leg comes off. This is just a handy time to get them off. You can use a saw. It makes more of a mess. Same with the back feet.
What's the ideal processing age?
When you're ready for it. It's not as fussy as with some animals. You know, they say you want to kill a lamb before it's a year old or it's not a lamb. My experience is you don't have to worry about that as much as they say either. The nice thing about a pig is they're real good storage for all of your leftover garden truck, obviously any leftovers out of the kitchen. You can feed that animal heavy and it will put on weight and store that food for you until you want to harvest it, right? You can also back way off, and as long as you don't back off too far, they will maintain that condition. You can keep them for, year and a half. You can butcher them at 2 years. You get old enough, you're going to have to start dealing with tougher animal. But I've definitely eaten a lot of sow, older sow that she was done with her having pigs. Fred, he'd butcher big old sows, and they're delicious. You have to deal with a drier chop, maybe, a little bit tougher, but you cook it. You take that into account when you're cooking. It's absolutely delicious. Yeah, exactly. He's saying you grind sometimes when you have say you got a little bit of a tougher animal. It's not going to have a bad taste, but you grind it. This is cows, not pigs, but at the shop that I worked at, we'd get old killer cows in. We'd grind the whole thing, and guys would be like, that's the best ground beef I ever had. Well, yeah, it had all your steaks and everything in it. Of course it was the best ground beef you ever had. Like, why can't it all taste that good? I didn't catch that.
Is there a certain weight that you prefer other than other weights?
This is a little small, but it'll be fine. Where the smallness on this one is a little bit of a drawback. It's not got quite as much cover over the bacons. The bacons are going to be a little bit small, a little bit less fatty. Now, some people might like that. It's a little more difficult to skin when they're this small. Not bad. I did one 2 days ago for myself. I did not weigh it. My guess is that live, she was about 400 pounds. She was big. The halves were murder to get up in there. The bacons were just beautiful. Huge, fatty bacons. That said, the halves were murder to move. Now, you can quarter a pig off of the hoist. So you could take the forequarter off. That's one of the things that you're going to do when we break down tomorrow. One of the first things you do is break that forequarter away from the hindquarter. You could do that and hang them up in there. I didn't because I'm dumb. I don't know. We could have done that and handled them in 4 pieces instead of 2, and that wouldn't have been so bad. But I was in a hurry. I was getting ready to come here. So I'm going to work my way around the hog, following the tension with my knife. Skin the head off just like the rest of the animal. On the head, you're going to not take the skin off quite so clean. That's just the way it is. There's going to be a little bit more fat stuck to the hide as you go around the head, especially on an animal this small.
Does sow meat and boar meat taste different?
Sow meat and boar meat? Is that the question? Yes. Boar meat, in my experience, usually has a real bad, okay. So what it is with a boar is the smell primarily. When you are cooking it, you will smell that boar very strongly. It's crazy how bad it will smell and how strong your kitchen will stink while you're cooking boar meat. honestly, you won't really taste it when you eat it. But there's nothing like that with the sow meat. The sow meat does not do that. This knife is not the sharpest. Yeah, it's all right. I'll switch to another one if I get sick of it. I don't know what this is. It looks like a fairly normal commercial style, but I'm going to say that. Someone's going to tell me I'm all wrong, and I don't know. This does not look like one that would tend towards fat. So I'm going to work my way around the back, and I'm just skinning down to the cradle at this point. I'm not trying to get beyond the edge of the cradle. That's half the hog scone. Anybody else have any questions?
How far away do you stand when you shoot it?
I was about 3 feet from it, probably. Yeah.
I ask you, how big, how heavy your pig is? How heavy?
This one? Anybody want to guess? Anybody out here raise hogs and want to guess? It's got to be in that 100, maybe a little over. Not real big.
What size do you think is the best for handling and butchering?
I like them bigger than this. If the halves are coming out around 100, which, so, you know, you're losing 25-ish% at gut and skin. So if your halves are sitting at 100, you were sitting at a 250-ish live hog. I like that size. But you have to be willing to handle 100-pound halves.
Is there any way to guess how heavy they are?
I don't know of one. Some experience.
You do a measurement from the back of the tail and around the chest, and you can be pretty comfortable.
I'm sure there's probably some kind of a, getting that measurement might be a trick, but.
What do you use the blood for?
Pardon me?
What do you use the blood for?
So my mother-in-law would make blood sausage. I should give you the mic, Maggie, and let you talk about it. But that's my sister-in-law. Well, okay, so this is complicated. 10 years before Maggie married John Paul, I married Maggie's older sister. So she's my sister-in-law, squared. But my mother-in-law would make blood sausage out of it. It's real, I like it. It's good stuff. It's not super high on my priority list. I don't catch blood that much. But. Yes. Yeah.
How fast can they put on weight?
I mean, that's a function of how you're feeding them. So commercially, they're butchering inside of a year, you know. So.
I think the normal commercial butcher weight is in the neighborhood of 2 to 220.
So I just switched to another knife because that one was kind of disappointing me a little bit. Which is a good demonstration that sharp is better than any particular shape or size. Yeah. Okay, good. I'll just keep working with this one for now. It's working good.
So if the pig is twice the size, does it take twice as long to process it?
No. I would say the answer is no to that. So one advantage of doing a bigger pig is you are getting more meat for the time invested.
Did you hang it up after you shot it when you...
No, I didn't. No. So it fell. I stepped in real quick and stuck it right here. Like I was saying, spine of the knife towards the tail. Just stuck it like that. It spun around on the floor and bled out, and I drove it right here. It was dead 5 minutes when I got here. Not even 2.5 minutes when I got here. That is one of the harder things to do. You know, it's one of the harder parts of the process. There's not really a special sauce to doing it. You just gotta remember it's really the kind thing to do. You've raised this hog, you've given it a good life, and its proper job is to feed you. So taking all that in mind, you just got to quietly step up to it. The best place to kill a hog is right where it's lived its whole life. For the most part, I find that if you shoot a hog in a pen of hogs, it doesn't bother the other ones too much. If you're processing, say, 4 hogs in the same pen, we'll separate the one. We'll like, if your pen has maybe 2 compartments, you can put the other 3 over here, you'll pull the one over here, you'll shoot it, you'll drag it out, and then you'll let the other 3 back in. They don't really seem to notice what's gone on. They'll probably go sniff at the blood and maybe eat the blood a little bit. But they don't seem to get real perturbed by the fact that somebody's gone and clearly dead. And I missed that.
I said they had a good life and one bad day.
That's exactly right. And to tell the truth, so that's more if you haul it to the local butcher. If you're butchering for yourself, you separate that one into one half of the pen. It doesn't know anything's going to happen. You shoot it. It never knew anything happened. There's no stress in that animal. It never got moved. Now, that's one of the great things about this, is you can back right up to your pen, shoot the animal, you can lift it right out with the winch. That animal never moved off the farm. Never had a moment's stress in its life. And that will be reflected in the meat quality. Stress is a real detriment to the meat quality of an animal.
What animals are your trailers designed to handle?
I have butchered beef with these. If you're going to butcher beef, you need to block up these corners. But other than that, it'll handle the weight just fine. Put a jack stand right here and right there, and then you're fine. So this is the one that I travel with. I am currently talking to a local guy who builds trailers, and if he starts building me my frames, he's going to put trailer jacks right here, so you can just flip them down and crank them down. This will handle the weight just fine. We had a milk cow at Mom's that was at the end of its useful lifespan, and we did her last winter. It wasn't this trailer, it was the one before it. But that one has since sold.
When you do beef, you have to quarter it before you hang it.
Yes. Because you can't move a half around by hand. So I'll have it hanging up, and I'll take the 4 quarters off and take them in, and then I'll lower the hind quarters, take them in. And even so, a quarter of beef is kind of heavy to move by hand. All right, so I've got her skinned down to the cradle all the way around. If you just stand here and spot her. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give myself a handle. Can I hand that to you? Thank you. I'm just going to roll that pig a little bit. Now we'll skin around all the way around, halfway around the animal. Wish I had. You want to grab one of your? Yeah, please.
Do you find it easier to skin around the tail or take the tail off?
So I tend to skin around the anus, leave a little bit of skin there. all those sphincter muscles, if you leave them intact, they stay fairly shut. So I'll leave a little patch of skin there, but I will skin the tail off. Thanks. Want to hand me the white knife? Want to hand me that white-handled knife? Thank you. Nope, switch back. You would think that I would come here with lots of sharp knives, but I was butchering the day before I left. And apparently, I left my knives a little bit dull. So if I'm doing this and not talking, it takes about 20 minutes.
Yeah, that works better for you.
And that's if I'm not in a hurry. One of the big advantages to skinning, because you're on a little bit of a clock, you want to get that gut out of there. It'll start to bloat up, and if nothing else, be harder to get out cleanly once it's bloated a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't want to give you a number because I wouldn't want you to then throw something away because you had been too long. Obviously, if the pig is out there dead in the pen, you don't know how it died and you don't know when it died, yeah, I'd say don't try and save that. But don't get too stressed. On a hot day, you're going to have flies bothering you, although they're not really bothering me today. So, you just want to get done as soon as you can. I'd start to get worried if it had taken you 4 hours, but I don't know how it would take you that long either.
They're an age where they start betting on lard instead of growing meat.
That would be a better question for somebody who's more of an expert on pigs themselves. And I'm sure it would vary breed to breed. Can I get the hose over here, please? Just spray off her back end just a little bit. Just don't use a lot of pressure. Don't blow that everywhere. That's why I had you do it.
So you said you learned this from your father. Can you tell a little bit about that relationship? How learning to do this ties into a relationship with that?
Sure. Yeah. So, like I said, about 25 years ago, I was about 11, and we moved out to where my folks live now. And shortly thereafter, we met the Benders, some good friends of ours, been our friends ever since. And as a boy, Barry had butchered with his dad and grandfather. And he had an old brick and cast iron hearth that they had used. He went back up, I think it was Buffalo, New York, where they had lived. Went back up there, picked that up, brought it back down to where we live in Ohio. I still remember we set it all up. Barry was a bridge engineer and a German, and it showed. He was not a brick mason, but the brick masonry looks perfect. He put this all back together, and we started raising hogs together, and have done for the last 25 years. And I remember being, 11 or 12, and Barry was very much master ceremonies, and he did everything that I'm doing here, although we were scalding and scraping, not skinning. So I learned a lot from Barry and then from Dad, because the two of them were working together, butchering the hogs. And we all grew up learning to butcher from Barry and Dad. And then I got married and moved out to Minnesota and worked at a butcher shop for a while. And when I came back to Ohio, I introduced them to the speed that you can do a hog with if you skin it. And we started skinning from then on because everybody has to take time off from work to do the butchering, and it's just handy to be able to get all 4 or 5 hogs in the cooler on one evening.
Growing up, we would do 4 hogs, and we'd start, it was typically Thursday evening, we'd start with a slaughter. We'd slaughter and hang 2. We were scalding at the time, and so, like Luke was saying, it takes a while to scald. You'd hang 2, you'd get them hung. It was always in January. So the previous August, we'd go out, we'd select our hogs, and raise them up, clean the pig pen every Saturday. That was always our job. And by about first part of January, pigs are up to weight, which for us was that 250 range. And Thursday night we'd slaughter, hang 2. Friday morning we'd slaughter, hang 2. And then typically Friday afternoon, break down the first 2 that we come in at 4. Because you gotta chill it. It's really hard to handle this more meat.
I did try.
And so you really wanna chill it so that you're able to manage it.
Thank you.
And it was a 3-day process. And what's it down to now?
Day and a half.
Yeah. Skinning speeds things up as well, and know what we're doing.
Yeah.
It was always little kids too. Like you said, he's 12, I would have been
At that
6.
point, yeah.
And so you got
You'd have been
6-year-olds.
2.
Maybe that's why he was Scalding too, and it was 6-year-old, 3-year-old knives.
And that's still the case because it's my kids now that are the 6-year-olds or the. All right. Would you get? I have a white tub back there. So I like to take the tongue out at this point. So I'm making an incision here and here. And I'm pulling up on the tongue, cutting it free in the point of the jaw. Now, if I pull up on it right now, work my way around the esophagus, I can kind of get it freed out like that. Now when I drop the gut, I'm not trying to free that out. Makes life easier. Cut the tongue off, we'll save that. We always put that into sausage. I'm gonna give myself a mark here. So I'm gonna split the H-bone. That's this, so pig's pelvis is sitting here, this is the H-bone on top. I split the H-bone hanging, but I like to mark it. Right now lying on the ground, on the cradle. Give myself a spot to aim for. And I split the breastbone at this point. Thanks. Trade you. When you're splitting the breastbone, it really helps to cut through the meat with a knife and cut through the bone with a saw. That's good. Let's get the hoist down.
You want to free up those tendons?
Good. Yeah. I'd rather use these. So one thing I probably should have mentioned as I was skinning the backs of the legs here, you want to leave this tendon intact. That's how you're going to hang the animal. Yep, probably. So I use this one single tree for everything I butcher. I make it wide enough that I can butcher a beef, and I just double up hooks if I am butchering something smaller. Okay, hold up. James, you want to put your hand here? So the pig doesn't take a dive. Nice. I wanted a shower. Sorry about that, Maggie. Okay, question about the skin around the back end. I've skinned the tail off. I've left the skin intact around the anus because that will help it stay shut. Now I'm going to split the H-bone. So I'm following the seam between the hams. There's a piece of silver skin right there. You can just follow it right down. There's a seam in the H-bone right at the bottom of that. Go ahead and go up a little bit. You want the back end of the pig up. We're just going to go all the way, pick her all the way up. When you crack the H-bone. Because what that does is the gut falls away from the pelvis, and you're less likely to put a hole in it when you crack the H-bone. We'll spray it when we get it up too.
Looks great.
Okay, the cradle can go away, and the hide can go in the wheelbarrow. That's good. Biting me? Bug biting me. All right, see that? I didn't even need to use a saw. On a little animal, a lot of times you can follow that seam right down, pop it right open. Now I'm going to go back here. I have the H-bone popped open. Pardon? Sure. And I'm just going to cut around the anus. Anybody who's butchered a deer is familiar with this. Just freeing the anus up. I got it cut free from the back end. I'm going to work it forward. Combination of pulling, and then to keep it from popping a hole, I use a knife to free it up as well. Okay, now it's free, sitting right here on top of the gut. I'm actually going to do, this is the quick way of doing it. Turn the knife edge forward and slide down. That's all free now. I just pulled the back end down, and it's hanging in front now. On a boar, obviously you'd have the pizzle. You would have worked that back as you scun. Then you pop open the H-bone, and again, it comes out through here too. You can just, it comes out with the back end. I'm just going to drop it right on the ground. It's a light gut.
Did you cut the anus open accidentally? Does it contaminate the meat?
Yes, so then you wash it. I don't get too excited about it. But yeah, this is your caul fat, which is very small on this animal. You can save that. It's kind of almost like lace. On a big animal, it would be much larger. This is hanging off the back of the gut. And so I am told there are dishes where you wrap the meat in the caul fat to cook it. I've never done that, but would you help me here, John? Just want to cut the caul fat free. We'll put it in here. Either way, go ahead. If you save it, you can render it down with the lard, which is what I always do. Just don't cut the gut. Thank you. This is the liver. We always save the liver. Make liverwurst or Brunschwager out of that. On the liver is the gallbladder. You want to carefully cut that free. You don't want that popping and contaminating your meat. if you were to save casings to make your own cased sausage, you'd be pulling them out of here. That was something else Barry Bender taught us to do. And it's a little bit of a process, too much to show you here today. Okay, I'm cutting through the diaphragm. Underneath the diaphragm is the lungs and the heart. This is where freeing up the front end of that esophagus is handy. I can just pull that free like that. It pops out. We save the heart, grind it. The lungs, portions of the gut, the spleen, at home, we will save those. And when we're done grinding what we're going to eat, we run them through the grinder and we feed that to our chickens. We freeze it and feed it to the chickens in small amounts. It's a good protein boost for them. Earlier this summer, our chickens, our layers, were starting to eat eggs. We gave them a little bit of that meat, stopped immediately. I'm pulling free the leaf lards. If you want to save lard for baking, that's these. Again, on a bigger hog, they'd be a lot more substantial. Sorry about that. This is your cleanest, what am I saying? It has the least flavor of all your fats. So if you're going to use a lard in your baking, that's the one you want to use. Then you split it. I actually wanted to, yeah. You can do this with a Sawzall. You can do it, I'm told, with a chainsaw. I've never done that. You can also do it with a handsaw pretty easily. The one thing I like to do is get a little bit ahead of the saw with a knife. Gives you something to aim for. Center of the spine.
And when we're done, we'll see how good of a job he did.
Oh,
by
just
how
stop.
well-balanced this is.
Just don't notice me holding one side up. Yes. Meat cuts real well with a knife. Bone cuts real well with a saw. Not vice versa. Yeah, you can go up a little bit on the hoist. When we were first doing this with Barry, we hand sawed the pigs. We use a Sawzall now. And we had a hand crank grinder that we used to grind. And we kids would spell each other on that stupid grinder. I guess it built character or something, I don't know. Pardon? Oh, yeah. No, so you can take the head off. What I got in the habit of not doing it because you need an additional hook then to hold the head in the cool room. If you leave the head on the carcass, it all hangs under two hooks, which is handy, especially in a commercial setting, which this is not, but I just do it that way by habit. Go up a little more. Okay.
Oh, there's a bullet. Hold on. This is what he shot it with.
Well, yeah. Just steady that a little bit. Thank you. This is easier with a Sawzall.
Do you find it easier to follow the spine from the inside, or
I do.
when we cut a Sawzall, we do it at the back side?
My brother prefers that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a matter of choice, matter of personal preference. There we go. Good. Yeah, cut those free. So one of the things that is particular to this trailer is I added these extra chains here. Go ahead and go down, James, a little bit. When you take one of these off, the other one wants to fall. So I use these chains to catch the halves. Go right there. Go down a little bit. Just till that's tight. Perfect. Okay, I'll do that. I have put a red sweatshirt on the tail of the trailer. Could you get that for me? So there's no fancy way to get it off of here. There's no fancy way to carry it to not get messy. You just get messy. So I brought a hoodie for that purpose. Before we do that, though, this is a good time to spray it off. And if you have hot water, now's the time to use it. There's a little bit of bone dust that accumulates when you're sawing. And your wife will appreciate it if you get it out now.
That's a pretty balanced cut.
Didn't hear
Yeah, I
it.
think it tucked up on one side, but it was balanced.
You cut it, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was balanced.
So what you're looking for is feather bones here. I did pretty good up here. I didn't do as well right there. What you're looking for is to split those spinous processes on the top of the spine. That's like, I don't know. If you want to get fussy about it, that's a perfect split.
Well, and the point of this, I think, overall, is to demystify butchering. Like, it's
Yeah.
really simple to do if you have a few basic pieces of equipment. And it's between October and March, you don't even need a full room. You can do it outside. You can make a loader bucket or a 3-wheel.
And that is how everybody should start. Don't invest in a lot of equipment. Yeah, the hard part is over. Tomorrow when I break this down, that's all easier.
Back here, I live in southwest Minnesota. There's a lot of hog raisers up there. And during COVID, they shut down almost all the hog processing plants. And there were guys that were taking thousands of hogs, shooting them and dumping them in a hole. They would, if you drove down there with a stock trailer, they would load it full and you would drive away from it. They'd rather do that than dump them in a hole. And if you have a little bit of knowledge on how to break down a hog, you could have had meat for years. But people don't know how to do it anymore. So for the most part, it just went into a hole and got buried with a bulldozer, which is a crying shame.
All right, I'm going to put these in the trailer now. That's my demonstration. I want you to please come check it out, look at the trailer, take a peek inside and show it again. Getting this meat home for tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming.